Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and I'm going to take a look at not only the astrological weather report for this week of September 25th through October 2nd, but I'm also going to take our first look at the month of October in a general way, which will give us a good amount of stuff to go over today, but knowing that there's the full moon next week, I wanted to just get through the October stuff this week too. But I'll do the weekly one first, and that way if you're looking mainly for the weekly, you can get through that, and if you want to come back to the monthly part at the end some other time, or just that would be available too. So first off, the Astrological Winds channel is a free service that I offer every week, and what I'd really like you all to do in order to repay me, so to speak, for the free service is to pass the link on to somebody else that you know when you're done listening to it. And I realize that may not mean that they'll become a follower or a listener also, but I just, anyone that you think, hey, this person might be interested, really helps the blog to grow organically, and I really appreciate that. And I would never say no to a donation too. I mean, people do want to sometimes feel like they want to give me a donation. You're welcome to do that. Any amount that you would like to give is fine, and there's no amount too small. And the best way to do that would be through my Venmo, actually, which is just the handle at Matthew with two T's, MATTHEW, then a hyphen in the middle, and then capital LAUTEN at Matthew-Lawton. So the blog is put up initially on YouTube every week. So if you have a YouTube account, you can become a follower of the blog, and then also turn on your notifications so that you know when I actually post the blog. The blog right now these days is mainly usually me talking to a camera. Sometimes I show a chart, so it's not really necessary to see the video. Therefore, it is available also on all kinds of podcasts. It's put out through Buzzsprout, and I think there's about 20 different podcasts that pick it up, including Spotify, Reveal, Apple iPodcasts. So just go to your favorite podcast if you're more of a podcast person, which I understand, actually. The video kind of keeps you stuck in a place where with a podcast you can be doing something else while you're listening, moving, jogging, biking, whatever, driving around, whatever it may be. You don't have to see me, is my point. You really want to hear the words. So that's another way that it's available, and you can become a follower on a lot of those podcasts too. Also, I have it set up on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account, just go to just look up Astrological Winds channel, all one word, and you'll find me, and just become a follower. And the cool thing about that is I do give bonus material during the week, which is not video or audio format. It's just me making some comments on maybe certain days where there's more going on. I want to mention maybe what the moon is doing too, which I never have the time to do in the weekly forecast, really, unless it's a full or new moon. And also, one other place I do post the link is on Facebook. However, my Facebook account is private, so you have to friend me. So just like the Venmo, you have to look me up under my name, Matthew with two T's, and then Lawton, LAUTEN. Now, remember a couple points I'd like to make at the beginning. I do talk some astro lingo because there's most of the people in the blog want to hear the astrological lingo and reasoning, at least in a general way, behind why I'm saying what I'm saying each week. But if you do not have or have very little astrology knowledge, there's no reason to get caught up on the astrological lingo. What you want to hone in, listen in on, is what that actually means this week in the energy of the week, so that you can make be aligned with that and be aware of what's going on and perhaps help you make some better decisions. So that's really important. And then, of course, we're all going to experience the energy differently. Everybody has their own free will choices that they make within the context of the energy that really determines much of how that manifests for them. And we also all have our own charts. And that's why, it's good to know what your chart is and what's going on each year in your charts, because those things affect you in a very personal way that, is different from the general weather forecast that I give each week. All right, so let's get to this week first. And there's a few really interesting things going on this week. Mercury is going to go direct next weekend on Sunday. And it's locked into a trine with Pluto all week, so we'll talk about that. And both the Sun and Jupiter are on the midpoints of that unstable, chaotic, changing Saturn-Uranus square of the last 2 years. So we'll talk about that. Venus is changing signs this week, also going from a weak sign of its fall in Virgo into a very strong sign of Libra, where it is the ruler. And so we have some interesting stuff going on this week that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll get to the monthly. So right away on Monday, it's kind of a residual day of the new moon from yesterday. Now, if you remember, I talked about the new moon last week in the blog and extensively, so I'm not going to go back over what that is, but the opposition of the Sun to Jupiter is exact on Monday, so that really continues the new moon energy all through Monday too. And at the same time, Mercury Retrograde is conjunct Venus. So I think this will really give us a pretty optimistic and good attitude to start the week. I know it's been a pretty heavy month, and especially with the Mercury retrograde, and I think this will, with that new moon energy in Libra, kind of giving us a jump, especially with the Jupiter, like I talked about last week, really gives an optimistic kind of energy to what we're doing. So when you think about the Mercury Venus conjunction, the Mercury retrograde Venus conjunction too, I think it'd be a really good day or two to really inside yourself look at what your feelings are about different people and relationships, which is what Venus is all about, and use that Mercury retrograde to really assess what you want to say to different people in your relationships, especially people that you have emotions tied into the relationships too. And I think it'd be a good day or two to just kind of think that over. The next time I want to see this person, or I see this person, how do I want to express the feelings that I have for them in this relationship? So I think it's a really good time to do that. Also, with all that energy of Mercury and Venus and the Libra, the new moon in Libra, another good time to really look at our own inner, our own inner space where we live and where we're functioning most of the time. And it may be a good time to do some beautification type things, or maybe bring in some things from your past that, have you feeling good about things and stuff like that. So also on Monday is the first of those two. The second big thing of the week really is both the Sun and Jupiter are on the midpoint of that Saturn-Uranus square. Now, if you remember last week, Jupiter was semi-square Saturn. This week it's semi-square Uranus. So it's right in between the two of them for this, this week, part of last week. And then also the Sun on Monday, today, in a sesquiquadrate with both Uranus and Saturn. So we have the Sun is on the long midpoint, and Jupiter is on the short midpoint of the Saturn-Uranus square. So what that means is that is, once again, just like I said this month, it's very tight, that square, and we're really seeing the structures and foundations of things being really shook up strong. But the sun, when the sun gets on the Saturn Pluto, this can give us like a toughness. Like, we know that we're going through tough times, but this can give us like a really persistent energy of like, well, I'm gonna get through this. I know what I have to do. So like, it gives you this strong, persistent kind of drive to get through whatever life is throwing at us. But and it gives us the ability to like resist or even rebel or be stubborn about the things that we really believe will get us through these unstable times. And that instability, when the sun gets on Saturn Uranus too, can bring separations from people of different types, and I mean, separations, once again, think in a broad category. People have a tendency to get very subjective. When you say a word like separation, they automatically think, oh, I'm gonna separate from my lover or partner. And it's like, separations occur on all kinds of different levels. People leave this planet and separate from us. People leave the area that we're living in, or whatever it may be. So like, there a lot of times that can bring up separations too. Now, Jupiter on that midpoint is very interesting too, because it's saying that it gives us the ability to adapt, but to like, situations that are like tense, situations where like old patterns and points have really reached a point of breaking, and all of a sudden that breaking gives us the ability to adapt into new situations. So it can actually change our destiny or change the fortunes that we have. But we have to really understand that a lot of that with the Saturn Uranus can come through difficulties, can come through losses, can come through damage done when structures are falling apart around us in a time of chaos and change. And so it's about wanting to rebuild from there, and create a new form from there. But it really gives us the ability to become adaptable to a changing time. So both of these midpoints together are like, yeah, I'm going to like persist, and I'm going to find ways to deal with the harsh changes that are going on in society and reality right now. Remember, Saturn and Jupiter are both social planets, and Uranus is one of the outer planets of evolutionary processes going on. So the evolutionary process going on right now is to break down the system and society as it is, and that changes are occurring. So inside us, that sun, we need to find that resilience, the strength to keep pushing ahead. And that Jupiter is going to give us the ability to adapt, to like think of new ways of doing things, and to pull that out. And we've got some help this week too. It actually comes in the form of Mercury Retrograde. Now remember, Mercury is going to go direct next weekend, but it locks into a trine to Pluto on Tuesday, tomorrow. And since Mercury's slowing down, that trine is going to stay, trine being a triangle, is going to stay locked in all week. And this is the energy of harmony. And when it's a Mercury trine Pluto, this gives us the ability, especially with Mercury retrograde, it's like double ability, triple ability, to look deeply within ourselves, to see how we work from the inside, to see how our mind works, to see how our psyche works, to see how our subconscious mind influences what we're doing. And then once we can see that and understand that, it brings transformation. It's like a light seeing how we operate. And then we can like use that better. We can get to the bottom of things, get to the bottom of how we operate, the fears, the influences that we have in our subconscious, and then kind of bring that out. Look at all that deep stuff that Pluto represents: life, death, change, transformation, fear, power, ideas, beliefs, all that stuff. We can really get a real good inner viewpoint of how that's working in us and get to the bottom of things. So this really helps us focus and gives a research type mind. So the R&D we want to do this week is inside, because we can really set up a flow of transformation inside ourselves this week that is like, it's like therapy, basically. I mean, it's even a good week to get therapy. If it's something where you have a counselor or someone you like to talk to, this is a really good week to get that done. And then on the same day, Mars is trining Saturn. So these two trines can work together, because all of a sudden we're seeing things in a different way, and that motivates Mars in Gemini, which is in an air sign, which is the mind once again, which is the sign that Mercury rules, which is in that trine with the Pluto. So all tying together is my point. These two beautiful trines, and it's like, okay, the things we see right now are going to motivate us to act, and they're going to motivate us to want to change things. They're going to spur us on, but also with this very purposeful, deep, concentrated, well thought out, patient approach of building a new foundation right from the start, so we can use the talents we have, the focus, the concentration we have for building something for the long haul. So Mars trine Saturn makes us a really good, careful worker who is very patient, very skillful, knows how to use our own skills and the resources at hand in practical ways to build a strong foundation. So, and also by doing that, it plays back into the trine of the Mercury Pluto, where we're learning more about ourselves. As we do things with these talents and skills, we're learning more about ourselves. So it loops back into the Mercury Pluto trine, and we learn more and more about what's making us tick. Really, really beautiful energy there this week. And then on Thursday, Venus changing signs out of Virgo, out of like that judgmental, critical, especially about others and relationships mind that Venus could be in, and into Libra, where Venus loves to be, one of its favorite signs, a sign of traditional rulership. This is when Venus gets to be all about relationships, which is what Venus is all about. This is when we put on our best face forward, we put on our charm, we beautify ourselves, we attract people to us, and by attracting people to us, we also can attract money, we can attract benefits, we can attract assets, objects of beauty, self-esteem, all those really beautiful things. And on top of that, Venus in Libra is extremely artistic too, so it's going to inspire us to beautify things around us. Libra's all about beautifying our surroundings, like wanting to be in nature and wanting to be around fine and beautiful, artful objects. And it's also very stimulating to our creative process for words. So, lyrics, poetry, music, storytelling, just communications among one another, writing even, are all gonna be inspired by Venus in Libra. And then remember, Venus also does rule our money and finances. So this is a time when we can maybe make a more balanced approach on what to invest in. Even if money is not in a good flow right now in a general way, a lot of times this is a good time where we can see in the future this would be a good thing to put money into now that will pay off in the future. And what's interesting too, next weekend, as soon as like I said, on Thursday, Venus is going into Libra, but next weekend on Saturday, opposition to Jupiter, which is like, okay, guys, next weekend, this is the order of business. Go out and have fun with your friends. Go out. I mean, this is just the most beautiful aspect to just go and have an enjoyable weekend with your friends. That's the mission. You may overspend money. You may bring your credit card balance up or your bank account balance down by doing so, but it really is the mission for next weekend. It is just really great for relationships, and with Venus in Libra also, and Jupiter, although in Aries, is retrograde, and and so is willing to compromise and wants to have good times. So that's it. So next weekend, that's the mission, guys, to have a lot of fun with your friends, and so start planning that now. And then on Thursday also, another change of signs. Ceres, our main asteroid that represents nurturing and resources, mother type energy, is going into Virgo, and this is when we perfect ways of getting the nurturing and resources we need. And I think that really fits in well with what we know is going on right now. Economically, things are kind of tight, and so there's a lot of stress for people again economically going on. High gas prices, high food prices, etc. I don't have to go on into that. So this is a time when we can really discipline ourselves into making sure we're meeting the needs and that we have to have first, and and are smart about the way we put out our money and that kind of thing. And then on Sunday is when Mercury goes direct. Yes, finally we will start to see. Now remember, here's one of the most important points about when Mercury goes direct. It's when it's standing still. Okay, so it's one of the 3 times during the 3-week period when Mercury is going through that retrograde phase where we really feel the retrograde stuff most acutely. So next weekend, I said to have fun, but there's going to be a lot of little detailed things that are going to, have to be dealt with and trip us up, especially with Mercury standing still in Virgo. It's going to, a lot. So really from, all next weekend, really until probably, let's say October 4th or 5th, will be this period where Mercury is pretty much not moving much, and that will really strengthen the things that are Mercury retrograde things. And with Virgo, it's showing that, yes, details, decisions, judgments that we made in the past are going to trip us up now because we didn't take care of enough of them. So all those things that normally, happen with Mercury retrograde, delays, misunderstandings, that kind of thing, are all going to be very strong next weekend. So that leads right into the monthly, because what the monthly is for October more than anything is changes of direction. Remember how many planets are retrograde? That's why September has been a very tough month in the real world. Most of the planets are retrograde, including one of the inner 3, that is Mercury. So we had all the outer planets were retrograde: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, even Eris, Chiron, all retrograde. And then Mercury joined the party, and when one of those 3 inner planets get retrograde with all those other outers, it's really a trigger that everything in the real world slows down. And so that's really what's happened there. And so next month, October, is a lot about changes of direction as far as planets changing direction. And we're going to have 4 planets and 2 asteroids go direct, but we're also going to have another planet go retrograde that's going to have a really big effect for the next several months, actually, and that is Mars going retrograde at the end of the month. The other big event, or 2 big events actually, of October is Jupiter, which has been retrograde for quite a while now, is going to slide back into Pisces, which is one of the signs it rules. So this is a good thing, actually. It's going to get out of Aries for a couple months, slide back into Pisces. And then also it is the beginning of the second eclipse season. Remember, the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, and we're heading for that Scorpio time of the year. So the new moon that's at the end of the month is going to be a solar eclipse too. So the beginning of eclipse seasons, which always shows sudden changes. In fact, the end of this month, October, is going to be a very, there's likely going to be a lot of change that goes on. So let me just quickly go through this stuff. And so, like I said, Mercury goes direct Sunday. That's the first planet that goes direct on Sunday, October 2nd. And it will stay in Virgo. It goes direct at 25 degrees Virgo. Will stay in Virgo, which is one of the signs it rules. So it's strong. Once it goes direct and gets through that period where it's kind of standing still on the 5th, from the 5th to the 10th, Mercury will start to really work well again. Our minds will start to work well again in Virgo. And then on the 10th, it will go back into Libra, where it started this retrograde cycle, and eventually get out of its shadow. So I'll talk more about that in the weekly. Then the second, and so on October 5th, which is a few days afterwards, was when Vesta, I said two of the asteroids are turning direct too. Vesta is going to go direct on the 5th, and I'll talk about that more next week. October 8th, Pluto goes direct after 5+ months of being retrograde. On October 8th, Pluto goes direct. So it's a very subtle shift when Pluto goes direct. It spends almost half its time retrograde. It doesn't move forward very quickly each year. So, and this is a time when these last 5.5 months is probably a lot of, in the background of our minds, a lot of inner chewing going on changes that are occurring, and how that's changing us inside, and how that's transforming us and having us to look at our own shadow, and how that relates to a lot of the changes going on outside. And so now we've got a better understanding of that stuff, kind of maybe more on top of it, and we can start to bring it out again to, instead of feeling like maybe we're powerless in a lot of things, we can start to understand how we work better now that we've gone through this period of looking within, and start to use our power in the outer world in more effective ways over the next 7 months. And then on October 22nd, Saturn goes direct after 4.5 months of being retrograde since early June. I think it was June 4th, if I remember right. This was a time period, these last 4.5 months, where, reassessing the structure of our lives, and that Saturn-Uranus got tighter and tighter, and a lot of the things that we're used to, both personally and socially, are not stable anymore. So this is a time where we probably spent a lot of it looking at things and how they become unstable, and the structure of our lives, and now seeing, what we need to do possibly to stabilize that stuff. Now that when Saturn goes direct, it's a time to move forward with our real world plans, with our practical plans, with our duties, with our ambitions, with our tasks, with our projects. And most of that usually relates to our work and career. So this is a time after October 22nd where you really start to push your new ideas about how you want to approach those things. And like I said, we usually do that through work and career, but it has a lot to do with our real world ambitions, what we're trying to get done here. And then on the 23rd is when October 23rd, the next day, is when the other asteroid this month that goes direct. That's Juno, the asteroid of partnerships, and going direct, and that will start to smooth out partnerships at that point. So then The other three things actually, is October 27th, Jupiter goes back into Pisces. And I'll talk about more, again, once more, a lot more detail of all these monthly things in the weekly reports in October. But if you remember, Jupiter went into Pisces December 30th of last year, and it was moving fast then. Usually Jupiter spends almost a year in a sign, and it would be really nice if it would spend a year in Pisces because it happens to be one of its favorite signs. It's one of the signs Jupiter actually rules. And the beginning of the year, December 30th, was when it went into Pisces, and it stayed in Pisces until mid-April. And so about 4.5 months. And if you remember, things weren't that bad yet. The economy was still humming along. The inflation was showing itself, but not in the ugly way it is. And the war of Ukraine and Russia wasn't quite on that level yet. And so there was things seemed to be better because Jupiter, the great beneficial planet and the social planet, was in a sign that it likes. But then it went into Aries in April, and it really shifted the energy. And since then, we've had a lot of economic downturn. We've had this struggle where this war got bogged down. Jupiter went retrograde. The war got bogged down out there. So it's really, in a certain kind of way, I'll use the word bummer, that Jupiter only got to spend 4.5 months in Pisces, when normally it spends close to a year in a sign. It was moving so fast, and then jumped into Aries. So it is going to go back into Pisces on the 27th of October. The unfortunate thing is Jupiter's going to go direct on the 28th of November. So it's only going to spend 2 months in Pisces again. So we're only going to get about 6.5 months of Jupiter time in Pisces rather than close to 12 months. But what my hope is that, Jupiter in Pisces really gives people greater tolerance, greater understanding, more of a spiritual way of looking at things, religious pursuits, mystical pursuits, abstractions and philosophies and stuff become very important, to people and the way they're living their lives. So they become more tolerant. They become less jumping on, where Jupiter and Aries would jump on people and ready for combat. This is more like, well, can we, find a way to unify instead? So my hope is maybe during these 2 months, especially since there's so much other intense energy going on, that it will, people will continue to try to have understanding for one another, even their enemies, and to try to find some balance with one another in different sides. The two fish swimming away from each other, not seeing each other, but yet still connected at the tail, that Pisces. So trying to live up to some higher ideals, even if we don't agree with what the other is saying. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out, because on October 30th, Mars is going to go retrograde in the dualistic sign of Gemini, and it will stay retrograde until January 12th of 2023. So we're talking 10 weeks through the U.S.'s midterm elections. And when Mars goes retrograde, it's like Mercury retrograde on steroids. It's literally the actions we take that we normally expect the results of just don't happen that way. It's a real serious slowdown to the way we normally function and act. And it can really start to drain our motivation and drive away, actually, to points of hopelessness. So we have a strong 10-week period, and then in the dualistic sign of Gemini, so that really shows there's going to be a lot of conflict as to what to do. People in conflict with one another, in conflict in themselves, and lots of confusion, not sure how to move forward, feeling like you're taking 2 steps back instead of moving forward. So it scatters the energy out too, so it becomes very ineffective. So and unfortunately, like I said, we have the 12 weeks in that, and then Mars will actually stay in Gemini for 7 months because of this. And like I said, once again, a dualistic sign, so it creates a lot of conflict, people coming at things from different angles, and right through the U.S.'s midterm elections is not a good sign. And then right in the middle of eclipse season, those elections too. And like I said, October 25th, the last thing I want to mention for the monthly is the first eclipse of the eclipse season, the solar eclipse at 2 to 3 degrees of Scorpio, which is conjunct Venus partile. Very interesting because the moon is in fall in Scorpio, and Venus is in detriment. So this is a very intense eclipse. It's probably going to be very, very intense for relationships and bring up a lot of intense emotional energy in relationships, and a lot of fears, a lot of regrets, a lot of power struggles, manipulation, odd things. And when we get to that week in October, I'll get really into that on a deep level. All right, I've gone a long time. I've done 2 blogs really in one here, so I'm up to 35 minutes, and I think it's time to say that, wrap this guy up. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is a free service. It is available on YouTube as a video every week. If you have a YouTube account, become a follower and turn on your notifications, and you'll know when it's posted every week. Now, like I said, it's a free service, and I've been doing this for years, you guys. I've been doing the YouTube thing for 2 or 3 years now. Did podcasts for years before that. I need your help. I need you to go and send the link to someone else as soon as you're done with this. I know that a lot of people are getting valuable information from me, and I know that sending the link on doesn't mean I'm going to get another follower, but if you think you know somebody that might be interested in it, do me a favor. Turn them on to the blog. Send them the link. Only takes a couple seconds. Not asking for a lot of your time. Put a lot of time into this blog every week for you, for me, and for everybody, okay? So please do me that favor. It's also available on all kinds of podcasts, and there's really no reason right now to watch the video. It's me talking to the camera, occasionally showing a chart. I may update that someday, but right now, a podcast is, even a more convenient way really to see it, so you don't have to keep your eyes on it. And I know people listen to podcasts when they're doing other things too, like when they're in their car driving around. So it's distributed through Buzzsprout. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple iPodcasts, it's on Reveal, it's on a bunch of others. You can become a follower on them too and get notified. And then I'm also on Instagram. I post the link on Instagram. Go to Instagram if you have it. Astrological Winds channel. It's all one word. And then just put that in your search. Become a follower. You'll see where the link is every week. And bonus material for Instagram people, because I actually post extra material during the week on certain days that I think are very intense or loaded days, especially when the moon is doing a lot of stuff, which I never get to talk to you on the weeklies about, except new or full moons. And then last place I do put the link is on my private Facebook account, which you're welcome to become a friend on. It's Matthew with 2 T's, Matthew, and then my last name is Lawton, Lauten. So you have to ask me for a friend request, and I use that mainly just for astrology, guys, so don't expect me to interact otherwise very much on that Facebook. Free service. if you'd like to give a donation, I won't say no. Even $1 or $2 is okay. I know certain people have given me a lot more than that, and I do appreciate any donation anyone wants to give. My Venmo account is the best way to give a donation. So, the symbol @ the A with the circle around it, and then my first name with a capital M, ATTHEW, and then a hyphen in the middle. Not at the bottom, in the middle. Capital L for the last name, LAUTEN, capital LAUTEN. That's my Venmo handle. Best way to actually support me is if you're looking to get a reading, or if you know anyone who's looking to get a professional astrology reading, which I've been doing for 20 years after 7 years of schooling, exams, and 10 years of personal study before that. Someone who's got over 35 years of experience in astrology. Get your natal chart done, okay? If you don't know the energy you're walking around with your whole life, then, your whole life is hit and miss. And if you've had your natal chart done and, you're not sure if it, is really the best thing, I know, sometimes you get different angles from different people. You really need to have a good understanding of that to work well. And then every year, right around your birthday, I highly suggest getting what I call a predictive reading done, which is the same thing as this weather report that I'm doing every week for the weekly, but for you for a year, so that you know how the stars and planets are influencing you this year in your chart, which is half of the astrology energy that's influencing you every day, is how it's directly affecting your chart. I also do relationship charts, children's charts, fixed star charts for people who are looking for deeper soul purpose, election charts, highly recommended and very popular, just to get the best timing for an event. There's no perfect timing, but if you're getting married or starting a business or buying something big, wouldn't you want to align things as best you can energy-wise for a harmonious future for it? Highly recommend elections for that. Horary, if you have a burning emotional decision question that you just can't seem to get an answer to, we can look at a chart and see if we can find some direction for you in that. So also relocation is another very popular one. Astrocartography, relocation, where your power lines are on the planet. Also have classes available for beginners. There's 5 of them. They're on Dropbox. They're $25 a piece, or $20 if you're a student with an ID. And then, and if people want to continue them, I will continue to put more of them on there. I am also available for lectures, classes, and events, mini readings. If you have some kind of event where you'd like an astrologer, question and answer sessions, open question and answer sessions, anything like that, just all those things. The best way to get me is to contact me through my email, and that is mattHue823@gmail.com. That's one more time, mattHue823@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment. That's another way to get me, but you do have to follow up if you ask on a comment, on one of the formats that the blog comes out. There, a lot of them do allow comments, especially YouTube for sure, and Instagram. All right, so that just about does it. Until I get my website redone, which I'm working on, that is the best way to contact me. All right, guys. It's going to be an interesting fall for the world and for the United States, but there shows a lot of resilient energy this week, and learning and knowing what we have to do to get through that stuff, and definitely a lot of shifts too. That Mercury's going to go direct, Venus going into Libra, those 2 beautiful trines working together. A lot of energy we can work with this week to lay some positive things for the future for us. So until next week, and we'll be looking at a full moon next week, a full moon in Aries next week on the blog. So tune in for that. I think it's at 9 or 10 degrees. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember exactly. But until then, try to use this energy this week to, lay some of those foundations for changes. All right. See y'all next week.